We encode our own behavior, how we show up, and then we can decode the other person. So if we are not self-aware of what we're doing, we're not consciously showing up. We are, what they say in body language, we are leaking information to other people. We're leaking it without even knowing, without even self-awareness.
Exactly.
A huge amount what we are conveying is unconscious. Huge.
55% it's unconscious and only 5% is conscious. So imagine how much potential it's just, left behind in that sense.
But once we can show our hands, the alert comes down in our brain and we say, this is a friend, not a foe. This is somebody that we can trust. That's why they call the hands the trust indicators. There's a lot of phrases that we say about show your hands or hands up or
Yeah.
give me your hand. There's a lot about hands that is very powerful. And
How can they use this body language, the leaders in this case, for example, in order to constantly sending those signals, positive signals towards others, no matter who those persons might be?
it's having open posture,
Okay.
looking at the person, maybe smiling, nodding to show that you're listening. All of those things, being mindful of how close you're standing, maybe leaning in when you want to make a point or when you want to show that you're listening. Doing a slight head tilt shows.
Hello to everyone. In recent episodes, I have explored how the nervous system, identity, and self-awareness shape leadership and human connection. Today, in this conversation, we will go deeper into how emotional agility and nonverbal signals influence trust, performance, and the way we show up, especially in moments that matters the most. I have a special guest today, Judy. Thank you so very much for being here with us today. It's such a pleasure. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I'm here in San Diego, California, and I'm delighted to be speaking to you today.
I have a curiosity. What first drew you into the world of emotional intelligence and leadership development?
That's a great question. I grew up in a home where we talked with each other about emotions and relationships all the time. My dad is now a retired psychiatrist. And
Wow.
right. And my mom is very emotionally attuned. And so we would grow up talking, sitting around the dining table at night, talking about what's going on at school and what are some of the challenges. And
Oh my God, you're
invariably,
so lucky. You were so lucky.
I know I have three older sisters, and we always, a lot of emotions. So
Wow, yeah.
there's always something going on with one of us. And so we would talk about it. And my dad is really amazing at asking questions and listening and not trying to immediately solve a problem. But so I knew that I didn't want to be a therapist, but as I went through school, I started to see how much I was drawn to how is it that people can get along better with each other in teams, in groups of people. And so I went on to study organizational behavior and I got a master's in industrial and labor relations, which
Wow.
is which is equivalent to industrial organizational psychology, and it's working with in organizations and human resources capacity, working with leaders and their teams to be more effective. And so that's a little bit about how, it was sort of natural to me.
Wow, that's so lovely. And when did you realize that technical skills alone isn't enough for real leadership impact? Where was that
So,
aha moment?
oh, there were many aha moments along the way. And I was able to work with highly technical people earlier in my career, in several tech companies. And I worked with some of the most brilliant engineering minds.
Wow.
And what I would see is that there would be times when leaders would not communicate with others within, and they would not collaborate. They would compete with each other. And then
Mm-hmm.
their teams would hide information from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they should be on the same team. And I even heard as
Exactly.
much as two different employees from different teams with a client, with a customer, and they weren't supporting each other in that meeting. And I said, what is going on here? They're technically brilliant, but
It was
they
so
are.
obvious, Judy.
Yes. And I mean,
Ooh.
if they can't communicate with each other, if they can't collaborate, if they don't listen to each other, then oh my gosh, they're really doing themselves a disservice. And I
Yeah,
wondered like how much more success. I mean, those teams were successful, but how much more successful could they be?
absolutely.
Being able to um be be partners and collaborators rather than not.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
not just technical skill. And I think employees can sense when the leader really cares about them.
I totally agree with you 100%. Definitely. We are human beings and we are made by matter, and that means energy, atoms. So, of course, even though you might not think about that, but still that thing quoting is still there. It always be there. So we
Yeah.
perceive that energy, and we perceive and we see the body language, the expressions of
Yes.
their faces, etc. So
Yes.
it's such a long discussion, and that's why I was telling you earlier, because I'm so happy that you're here today, because I
Oh.
have so many wonderful questions for you. At this point, I have another question, please, Judy. How much of our body language is unconscious identity in action? In other words, are we revealing who we believe we are, or who we are trying to be?
Wow, that is almost a philosophical statement. Are we revealing?
So, how much of our body language is unconscious identity in action? So that means
Yes.
that someone might actually want to reveal something which is part of their identity. We reveal who we believe we are. So that means we fake, or what we're trying to show what we wanted to be, not what we
So
actually are.
I guess let me answer it this way. We're talking about the general area of emotional intelligence. And that's
Yeah.
the ability to be self-aware and then to manage our own body and self and emotions and to be aware of the other person or what else the other and then being able to navigate with that understanding and show empathy and be able to influence, be able to connect and collaborate. So all of that is is under the umbrella of emotional intelligence. With body language, we have something called we encode, which is we encode our own behavior, how we show up, and then we can decode the other person. So if we are not self-aware of what we're doing, we're not consciously showing up. So
Oh.
I'm a big believer, and we are what they say in body language, we are leaking information to other people. We're leaking it
Yeah,
without even self-awareness.
exactly.
A huge amount of what we are conveying is unconscious. Huge.
95% is unconscious and only 5% is conscious. So just for the others to know. So imagine how much potential it's just,
Yeah.
left behind in that sense. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
people think, oh, it's all words, but no, I could sit here and say, I could say this. I'm having a good day. It's beautiful outside. Do you believe me?
No, I
So
wouldn't and even stay there to listen to you, because I would be so, it would be a tiny bit too much for me personally. It's
yeah,
draining for me, honestly. So I
yeah,
wouldn't be present as a
yeah.
person there with you, because you have this way of showing up, as you just mentioned earlier. If this you're showing up, then thank you, but no thank you. For me, at least.
Yes. Yes. So when you talk about nonverbal communication, it's everything from eye contact, gestures, gestures, posture, um, hand movements, vocal variety, tone, pacing, um, volume, pacing, as in, do I speak really quickly or do I speak slowly? Do I pause? Do I lean in to show interest or make a point, or do I just sit still? So there's a and the colors of clothes, the type of clothing, the way I have my hair, all of it is communicating something. And
Wow,
we
Judy.
better we owe it to ourselves to be more self-aware and more conscious if we want to be happy and successful in the world, because there's so much more influence that we can have, so much more sense of self-satisfaction that we can have if we have a little bit more awareness of ourselves and of others. And people that know that I studied body language, they get nervous and they said, "Oh
Yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah.
are you like evaluating me?" No, I'm not evaluating you, but I think what happens is I've studied it, so there's some of the things that I'm aware of now are um, I'm just in practice. So I can see that you are nodding. That's telling me that you're in agreement. You're raising your eyebrows. That's showing interest. You're smiling. You're comfortable. You're resting your hand on your chin. So there's certain things I'm detecting or decoding about you that it's not even conscious. But part of it is needing to be present
Mm.
here with you in order to be able to do that. And so many of us are like this.
Oh, Judy. Oh, thank you. I'm not against technology because I'm very much into it and I'm using
Right.
it very much, like
Absolutely.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the technology as such. It's just the who is using the technology that has the responsibility. That means that you are responsible on how you use it. So it's not the technology that is the huge big problem here, because a lot of people still nowadays, unfortunately, I have to say it, unfortunately, have this misconception that technology, AI in particular, it's a huge, huge disaster. It is not. Of course, it is a certain degree. Of course, like many other things, let's be serious. Let's not be hypocrite, right? And you have to be responsible on how you use that particular tech. So this is it. This is very simple. It's not complicated.
I mean, one example, I walked into an office of an engineering leader for a one-on-one for a meeting, and they're looking at their screen. Well, they're greeting me and they look over at me. Hi, how are you doing? What do we want to talk about? And they look over at their screen. And that's communicating to me that something else is more important
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
than me. They might not intentionally realize they're doing that. They're being pulled in so many directions. I don't think
Mhm.
they mean to make me feel that way, but that's the result. That's the impact of it. So
Yeah, but see, again, we return to the thing that you were just talking earlier about self-awareness, because it is about that. Guys, it's self-awareness, it's about so many things. It's not just, it's about being self-aware of your thoughts, about your emotions, about your behavior, about your attitude, about how you approach to others. That's the point. How do you communicate, if you want to communicate, until what point you want to communicate, what is the manner that you want to communicate. And as you just mentioned earlier, Judy, thank you again for mentioning that, because it's so important. I'm not saying that someone is dummy or someone is not self-aware. Might be that each one of us, nobody excluded, sometimes we tend to not have that self-awareness and losing it through the path among so many things that we have to do and deal during the whole day. So it has to be a constant work within ourselves, because it's about self-respect and self-love.
I think it's also being intentional. I believe that
Yeah.
people generally want to show up, be a good person, be kind to others, do a good job. I don't think that people are trying to screw each other over
No.
and be mean and nasty. So if
Hmm.
you assume positive intent, and show up in that way, um, there's something called emotional contagion. And that is that we have mirror neurons in our brains, and they were an adaptation when we were, you know, cavemen, so that we could hook into what others were feeling and what was going on. And so we are always sensing emotions of others subconsciously. And so
Exactly.
if we're around somebody in a bad mood, how often does that put you into a sort of a negative mood?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know that
definitely.
having three sisters, growing up in three sisters and sharing a bathroom, and if one of us if one of us was in a bad mood, it spread like wildfire. And so if you think about that, if we can try to show up in a way that's either neutral or positive, we are already making a positive impact in the environment around us, right? Just
Exactly.
something
Yeah,
so small. We don't have to do everything in this world. Just
exactly.
try to
The
show
small
up.
steps.
Yeah, small things. But emotional contagion is something so powerful. And we don't even realize it. You know, when you walk into a room and you can feel the mood.
Because it's very personal, not because I have something to hide as such, but I'm very, very empathic, and I do feel very much myself and others. And it's much more than that. But I worked so hard by accepting it and going further on developing more this skill that I think it's really part of me, always been. And it was a struggle during my youth to accept it, first of all, um, because I have to accept it that and being aware that I have it, this
Yeah.
ability, because it's an ability, and you can accept to go further, embrace it or not. But just because, as I mentioned just a second ago, it can be very dangerous as such for yourself. But I learned how to manage it. It became for me such a really huge tool, but in such a positive way. Really, it's such a wonderful thing when you start to know your skills, abilities in such a way that you can it becomes something like mother nature. You don't have even to force one finger because it just comes to you really in a simple natural way. So it's wonderful, but again, like many other skills and abilities, it might be, you know, also dangerous if you don't know how to use it, how to manage it.
So it's like
Work.
any natural talent you have, if it's overused or underdeveloped, it can be a liability. So
Yeah,
if you have so much empathy, the way it was explained to me recently is it's like being an emotional vacuum cleaner. You're just
yeah,
sucking up, right? So you
yeah,
need to protect yourself a little bit and be aware of the emotions around you, um,
exactly.
and and
Thank you.
not take it all on.
Yeah,
Just to,
yeah,
you know,
exactly. It's a
self-protection.
really hard work. It took me really a lot of years. Like literally, this is not an easy work, but it's not impossible. But it's really wonderful, unbelievable when you start to know yourself. Because I'm really happy that I have decided to embrace it and develop furthermore this ability, because it always been again part of me, but it became like air for me. We are here today talking about leadership as well. I give you my word, Judy, it became an asset into my professional life, and it helps me so much being so empathic and feeling others and noticing. I'm such an observer, but
Mhm.
because I have this ability, I have developed this ability and it helps me so much in my personal and professional life. It's wonderful.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
There's something else people say, well, should I trust my gut feeling?
Yeah.
So intuition and gut feelings are fast, automatic judgments that we make that are based on this non-conscious processing
Exactly.
and
Uh-huh.
social information based on experience, based on things that we don't even realize, notice that we're sensing and we're picking up on that are below the conscious level. So there is something to be said about intuition and gut feeling. When you can sense that something's not right, you should listen to that sense.
I
That's
agree.
very important. I mean, there's things, why do we not trust someone who's um blocking themselves. So the lie detection is a whole area which I find fascinating. And there's no one signal or tell that somebody's lying. And so you're looking for clusters of cues that could say, well, that person might be lying.
Mm.
But so for instance, one thing that we know is that when somebody lies, um the the hairs on the nose or the neurons on the nose like itch. And so
Yeah.
a person will itch their nose more. And
What?
there's a statistic. Is that not amazing? There's a statistic
Yeah.
that when, Bill Clinton is a former president and
Yeah,
he
yeah, I know it
was
all.
interviewed, and they said that
Yeah.
these researchers studied him being being deposed, interviewed, and they said that when he was answering truthfully, he touched his nose twice. When he was lying, he touched 26 times
Oh
more.
my God. It's
So
terrifying.
so that whole idea of Pinocchio with your nose growing. So there's
Yeah.
I think it's like the neurons or something under in the nose, they will itch. And that's why people will like brush
But can
their
I please ask you something about that regarding this part? So I have a really bad allergy, for example,
Oh, yeah.
and I know it always itches me. No, because I have studied a tiny bit also the body language, but I know that it might be a misconception also, like in
Yeah,
fake
it's a
signs.
sign.
That might be, for example, when you scratch your nose very often, but sometimes it also might means that that person might have actually like a
Yes.
problem, like
And
in or
well,
disease or.
I might be cold, or
Mhm.
I might be blocked off
Mhm.
from you.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm cold. It's a cold day outside.
Yeah.
So what we say in what I've learned in lie detection is that we first take a baseline of the other person. So the
Mhm.
baseline might be that you are rubbing your nose. That might be your baseline gestures, your baseline
Exactly.
emotions, your your auditory baseline, your emotional, your physical. Then we look for once we have that baseline, we know what your and we're asking you questions that are not um emotional or possibly um
Personal, you mean, or more that.
so something like, how are you doing? How's your
Mhm.
day been? So then we take a baseline. Then we look for the lying cues, and we're looking for
Mhm.
clusters.
Mhm.
Some of the cues might be blocking behaviors,
Mm.
blocking,
Yeah.
blocking, increased blink rate. That's blocking too. It might be that your face gets red, you might start sweating, you might start swallowing more.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
those are the
If it's true.
you might breathe more quickly. There's a lot of different, you're looking for a cluster of multiple things.
So
And
what
then
does it mean, all those elements that you just mentioned earlier? For example, when a person starts to sweat a lot, what does it mean?
so there are certain cues that when
Mm.
you that are show a greater likelihood that you might be lying. But you need to look for groupings of those.
Okay.
So it's not just that a person is looking away. Oftentimes a person looks away I do this
Yeah. Yeah, me
because I
too. Yeah.
so if a person's looking away, blocking, turning away, stumbling over their words, then you're looking for multiple things all at once. Then
Mhm.
you go, well, why is that person, this is such a shift from what their baseline behavior was.
Mhm.
I'm going to ask them more questions about this. So then once you say, I think I've seen some clusters around this questioning, I'm going to ask more questions about this. Tell me a little bit more about, or one thing you can do is you can ask, if it's trying to get the truth out of someone, can you tell me the story backwards? So what happens before that? What happened before that? Then what happened before that? So sometimes it's hard for liars to remember how to tell the lie
Yeah,
back
true. Mhm.
in a backwards order, right? So
Wow.
the first step is to baseline by asking neutral questions. Then
Mhm.
the second step is to start getting into touchier questions that are pointing towards the truth, like getting to the truth. And you start to look for these cues and these clusters of lying cues. Then once you start seeing those clusters, you ask more questions to get confirmation, and you go deeper, and maybe you ask the questions differently, and you see if you get those consistent responses. And then you might even go about and ask them, so straight out, so did you steal the candy bar? So then you might just go out, and then you see how so you go through a series of steps. But what they say is that um we generally cannot tell the truth greater than 54% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
54% accuracy. So basically a flip of the coin is what our ability to tell whether someone's telling the truth. But if we start to train our mind to look for certain things, you can actually train yourself to look for certain, do this baselining,
Patterns and signs. Yeah.
do
Got
this
it.
whole process, and you can start getting closer to the truth that way.
Mm-hmm. So just for others to better understand, Judy, guys, I mean, it's not that someone is, I don't know, touching their nose. They are just lying and telling you a lie in that sense. It's just for others to better
Correct.
understand that it's not just about one sign or clutter, whatever. There are steps to be done before you actually might say or think like not 100%, but still a really
Yes.
high rate of that percentage that might be true, that that person might lie or not in that sense. Isn't it,
Correct.
Jo? Yeah.
That's correct. So you can train yourself. We have these communication centers. They've studied the brain, and we have these communication centers in our brain. Women have more communication centers
Yeah,
than
I
men.
know. Yeah, hallelujah.
Study the brains of men
Yeah.
and women, and
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
what they
I know,
found.
I know, I
But
know.
so you can train the muscle. Our brains are fascinating. The way that we can the growth mindset. Carol Dweck wrote a book called Growth Mindset. Some people believe that we have a fixed mindset, that we are who we are, we can't learn, we can't grow, we can't
Yes.
better ourselves. But the research shows, no, we have a growth mindset. We can grow. We can change our patterns and have new habits and create new
It's called
outcomes.
neuroplasticity. Thank you.
That's it. That is it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I find this so fascinating. And one of the
Yeah, me
reasons
too.
why I was drawn to studying body language is because it's like when you start to learn this, it's like a hidden superpower.
Exactly.
It
Thank you.
truly is.
It is indeed.
Yeah,
Oh.
here's a study that I found fascinating. They took video of people walking in New York,
Uh-huh.
and they took criminals, and they had criminals look at these videos and say which they would try to mug and which they wouldn't. And
I
the
think I
same
read it somewhere. Yeah, yeah. But please tell more about it. Yeah.
but the criminals would cite the same people that they would try to mug based on the way the person walked, the gait, whether they were distracted, whether they were the pace of their walking. So we are communicating whether we realize it or not through, so they say when you're walking in a dark alley, stand up straight and with confidence, and person is less likely to attack you because they see that you're a confident, strong person that has somewhere to go, right? So there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that we communicate. That's why also first impressions happen within seconds. And
Oh, yes.
before you even walk up on the stage to speak, people have made their first impression.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Before,
Oof.
so all of those little things, and this is not to say that people should be paranoid about what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's more to say, if you're curious and if you want to understand yourself and others better so that you can be more fulfilled and happier and more successful, then, you know, let's learn a little bit more about it because it's really something that it becomes a superpower.
I totally agree with you, Judy. Absolutely, 100%. Can body language reinforce somehow imposter syndrome or help someone more move through it? Because there are a
Yeah.
lot, I notice, still very much of people that are still struggling with imposter syndrome. And I think kind of each one of us, let's be serious, who didn't have like seconds or minutes or hours, just a couple of hours of imposter syndrome. It might
Yes.
come and go, like in that sense, or it might stay for more than a while. Can body language as such can reinforce that imposter syndrome?
So there's a lot of ways to answer this, but let me share a client that I have, a client
Mm-hmm.
who is new in her role and wants to convey confidence and she's an internal consultant and she wants to
Mm-hmm.
convey confidence and that she can do her job successfully and that she's an expert, a subject matter expert. And she speaks kind of quietly and she speaks really quick. She speaks quietly, quickly, and sort of like she's sort of internal like this. So
Yeah.
I'm working with her. Once you open up your chest, not only, there's this Amy Cuddy has done research and written a book on the power pose.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And there's a lot of research. There's
Oh,
questions.
the Wonder Woman pose in that
Right, and then
sense. Yeah,
one of
yeah,
the things if like that it releases certain hormones, but also
exactly.
you're getting more oxygen. And more oxygen energizes you so that you can speak with a stronger voice, right? And you feel different. So with this person, I'm trying to get her to slow down a little bit,
Mhm,
speak with a lower tone because the research shows that there there's greater credibility when you can speak with a lower tone, a lower register,
mhm.
and to not use the question inflection, which is like that. The question inflection makes you sound like you don't know what you're talking about, right? And it's a habit. I have that habit and I try to break the habit by practice. I'm in a Toastmasters speaking group, weekly Toastmasters meeting where I practice my speaking and I get
Mhm,
feedback on it. I've been told that I say like too much. Saying like or or like see, I just said like. So there's certain things that you can do to
mhm,
convey greater confidence. And when you're conveying confidence, your audience is likely to be nodding to you
mhm.
and reflecting back
Yeah.
that confidence to you. When you're speaking like this and then yeah, maybe, and sometimes when you do this, it does that, and that other person watching you is responding, probably thinking, "Does she know what she's talking about? Is she an expert? Should I be trusting her?" So we get back a reflection, a mirror back to us, what we are projecting. And so as a coach, I like to tell people that I like to provide a mirror to them of the positive. So people think, oh, the negative things I'm doing, the bad thing. No, the positive things too, because there's so many good things that we don't realize. And that when we
Yes,
can
exactly.
we can recognize and celebrate those positive
Yeah,
things,
yeah, definitely.
that's a reinforcement that actually has us build confidence but when we're more competent, it builds confidence. So when we feel like we're getting this positive feedback
Mhm,
to us, it builds our sense of competence. I can do this, and that
mhm.
creates greater confidence. So
Absolutely.
that's a little bit about that. It's sort of like a feedback loop.
Hmm. I just wanted to add a small tiny thing, if you don't mind, Judy, because it's just for others to better understand slightly tiny bit more about body language and its purpose as such, how it might be used or misused or etc. It's not, guys, it's not about fake it until you make it. So,
No.
Judy, please, just because it might
Yeah.
be misunderstood by other people
Yes.
in that
No,
sense,
I think
it's a tiny, slightly bit more than that in that sense. So isn't it, Jude?
it's like um training, let's say you're training yourself to be a better runner.
Yeah, a better
So,
athlete, for example.
right. So, how can I show up as a more confident human? What are some of the things I can start doing? I can even look in the mirror and smile more. Smiling releases these positive
Hormones.
hormones
Yes.
that make us
Oh,
feel
thank you.
better. So
Yes.
little things like that.
It's definitely so much, much more than just faking it till you make it. It's about hormones, about our body.
Yeah,
Our body
yeah,
has so many functions that even though you might believe it or not, this is science, this is biology, and
yeah,
this is how it is, period. So no
yeah,
matter if you believe it or not, this is how it works. So it's not about
yeah.
fake it until you make it. It's just true. Physics.
Yes.
Yeah. How does the nervous system then show up non-verbally when someone feels unsafe, then judged, or even under pressure?
So I've been studying and become certified as a positive intelligence coach. And positive intelligence is a practice, and there's a book called Positive Intelligence and a whole approach to building mental fitness or mental strength,
Hmm.
so that you could handle life's challenges with a positive rather than a negative mindset.
So it
And
can be also under the umbrella of mindfulness, just for others to
yes,
understand. Can you please also explain to others what exactly you personally mean by mindfulness? Because I do believe that also nowadays still there is so much misconception and misinformation about what actually is mindfulness.
I think mindfulness is the ability to pause and be present in the
Thank
moment.
you.
And so you can, that saying, create a space between stimulus and response.
That
And
means
you,
momentum as well. Yeah, embrace
yeah,
the momentum.
and some people think that you need to sit in meditation for
Exactly.
20 minutes,
Exactly.
but the
Exactly.
research shows that you can create new neural pathways doing 20-second presencing exercises. So
Exactly.
taking 2 breaths or taking a moment to listen for the furthest away sound.
Exactly.
I can hear cars off in the and then noticing the nearest sound. So while you're doing that, you're bringing
It's
your
called metacognition.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So the whole idea is, how can I self-regulate
exactly.
so that I can be in the moment, be present, be calm, and
Exactly.
not trigger my fight, flight, or
Exactly.
freeze, but be present in the moment so that I can make a mindful, um, calm choice about the next
Exactly.
action I want to take.
Because you become the observer of yourself. You are not part of it anymore as an actor. You become the observer, and it's a totally different view.
So
Definitely.
I've worked with people to help them build this mental fitness. It's like lifting weights, but for your
Hmm.
mind.
Yeah.
And this one person I worked with, he was very judgmental, had a very hard
Mm-hmm.
upbringing, and his dad was very negative, and so he was very reactive and judging
Mm-hmm.
and quick to get upset. He studied and practiced, and he said his wife, at the end of the program, he said, "My wife feels like she has her husband back again." One example, he was making coffee and he dropped his coffee mug one morning. Normally, he would have gotten upset and angry and just stormed off. And
Mm-hmm.
because he had been practicing this presence, mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
he remained calm. He knelt down. He picked up the pieces of the cup that had broken. He wiped up the coffee. His wife looked at him like, "Who is this man?" But so he had created a new neural pathway, new
Exactly.
response, automatic response that wasn't flying off the bandwagon, getting upset and angry, yelling and stomping off. He was now able to stay present and calm and choose to just deal with what was in front of him, clean it up, and go back, make another cup of coffee. I mean, that was like amazing to see how you can shift your patterns.
For those who actually might be willing to be involved in this beautiful
Yeah.
metacognition section, please believe me, that's a huge tool and such a simple tool. You don't have to be a scientist to use metacognition, guys. I also share something on LinkedIn about it. I also shared a small short video about it in order for others as well to be more clear, because for me it's clear, but sometimes it's hard for me in that sense to make it clear for others, because for me it became so natural. So I'm really trying to make it as simple as I can in order for others as well to understand that it's really a powerful tool. How do cultural differences shape the interpretation of the body language in leadership? Because as you might know, I live in Denmark and I lived also abroad in so many other countries, but Denmark for me, it was such a powerful and different experience, still is, but in a different way, in more lean way now, currently. Such a really different country from so many point of views, but the one that is the strongest one is the culture here in Denmark. It's so different among other countries that in fact it's so hard and tough that it hits you really like a lot, and you can feel it in that sense. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's just totally different. Yeah, so that's why this question.
So I think it's helpful to think about it in terms of all the different ways in which we communicate nonverbally. So we have words, and we also have space. So space, how far away do we stand from each other? Some cultures stand at a distance. Some are much closer. So it's understanding space for whatever country or part of the world that you're going to, or culture that you're interacting with. Touch, it's called haptics, but it's the formal term is called haptics, but it's touch. How is touch accepted within the culture? Is it normal for people to touch each other, to hug each other, to kiss each other? Um, is it a handshake? Is it a fist bump? Is it a bow? So understanding touch, eye contact. Some cultures are less comfortable with direct eye contact. So it's learning about what that culture is comfortable with, right? It's facial gestures and expressiveness. Some cultures are less expressive, right? And I'm an expressive person. You from Italy, yeah, right? This is like this. So
Yeah.
so we have the internet, so we can now go online and look and say, and
Yeah.
there's someone named Hofstede who has studied the cultural dimensions of every country, and you can pull up a report, enter two countries in, and then you can see how the countries line up on 5 or 6 variables like masculine, patriarchy, masculinity, openness, but you can learn about what it's like by country, and then you can also look up cultures and get a sense for who you're going to be interacting with and what their cultural norms are.
Yeah.
I don't know what all of them are, but I do know also, like, what kind of clothing do they cover up?
Totally different as well here. So I
Right?
had
So
to
those
change
are
all my clothes and
yeah.
wardrobe, like so literally. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I still have my identity, of course, but obviously you kind of have to shift in a way,
Yeah.
just a slightly tiny bit, because I mean, you also change. Let's be serious. We change constantly as human
Yeah.
beings. There were so many things that they were involved in this experience in Denmark for me personally, and I heard so many other stories from other internationals as well. And if you are willing to understand, as you just mentioned earlier, more about it in order for you to belong, then it makes sense. Otherwise, yeah, obviously you know, hit the road and go elsewhere in that sense. How do you personally define emotional intelligence? I'm sure that many others might still get confused of what actually is.
So when I was in HR, so I was in HR in companies for about 20 years or so. We would talk about a manager like, do they get it? We would say, do they get it? Like, do they get the value of human connection, interaction, communication, caring? S- That would be getting it. But what I would say is that emotional intelligence is the ability to ask yourself, how am I feeling? How am I
Mm,
showing up? The ability to look at the other person and say, do they trust me? Is this person feeling defensive? Um, do they feel respected? What motivates it? So it's having curiosity and having some self-awareness and awareness of what's going on around you is, I would say, emotional intelligence.
and emotional intelligence, AQ, can become a competitive advantage considering in the era of AI that we all living in,
Yeah.
can become a competitive advantage as such.
Yes, I believe, yeah, absolutely. For all the reasons we've discussed, but also because the skills that are mattering more and more as AI grows are the non-technical skills, because AI can produce the content, calculate the information, but that doesn't create psychological safety. You can't
Mhm,
influence. It doesn't create leadership presence. If it doesn't repair conflict, it doesn't
mhm.
build relationships. So, being emotionally intelligent is what is needed in order for teams to be engaged, motivated,
Mhm.
resilient. AI won't do that. It won't
I
make
agree. Thank you, Judy.
it won't make your employees
Thank you. Yeah.
trust you more or be more motivated to serve and to try harder. Um, it's absolutely the emotional intelligence of the leadership, and they're they're being able to show heart and care and not treat you like a resource, but treat you like a human being.
Yeah,
People
definitely.
people can feel that. They can
I
smell
totally
it.
agree.
They can
Yeah.
smell it in the leader. They can sniff it out. I've done probably a few hundred exit interviews with employees, and employees are very honest when they're walking out the door. And they'll tell me, like, I don't think my manager really ever cared. They just became a manager because they thought that they would get promoted more quickly that way. Oh, so they can tell.
It's such a cliche. I have hear it and see it so very often as well, personally. Unfortunately, there are still a lot of so-called leaders that they don't consider this part so important.
Absolutely. And I think that if a leader doesn't pause and get curious about
Yeah.
what makes their employees, what are they motivated by? Is it money? Is it recognition? Is it time spent together? Is it special projects? Is it um if they know that about their employees not only feel like, oh, my leader cares about me.
Yeah. They will do more, even if you don't even have to ask them because they will do more. And that's what they don't get
Loyalty.
at these leaders, so-called leaders. The
Right.
people, those people, they will do
Loyalty.
the work for you and even the extra. So what is the most common inner saboteurs you see blocking leadership potential then?
So I think the hyperachiever, the controller. So I think that what's confusing is that leaders say, but I need to be an achiever. I need to control what's going on. Yes, I think it's important to set goals. I think it's important to be aware of what's happening and have great oversight, but people don't want to be controlled. You're actually
I agree.
doing more, you're doing more harm. So what
Yeah.
I try to help people understand is, what is the underlying strength underneath the controller? The underlying strength of the leader is that um can put things into place and hold people accountable and know what's happening without having to control it all, but holding them accountable, communicating their
Exactly.
expectations and holding them accountable. That's not controlling, that's good management. That's smart leadership. So I
I
think that
definitely agree.
there's a it's like a dial. And if
Mm-hmm.
the leader is overly, whatever the good quality is, if they're overdoing it, then they're causing more harm than good. They would be better off reeling it back in
Yeah.
and not like letting go a little bit of control or hyper achieving. And we had a leader at one of my previous organizations that was very hyper achieving, overly controlling, a stickler. And after a project was really successful, he went to the lab of the engineers who worked on the
Mm-hmm.
project. And this was told to me by some of those engineers. And this man showed interest, said, "Great job." But then he said, what's next? And how are we going to get the next thing? And what are we going to do to beat the thing?" So he barely spent a second or a minute on what went well and celebrating that before he went on to what's the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And the people that reported back to me said that was not motivating for us. We appreciate that he stopped by the lab and thanked us, but it it made us feel like we were kind of just expendable. We were just
Yeah.
resources there to get the thing done, and he didn't really appreciate us. So people can sense when what the leader's intentions are. It's intention and impact. You know what how they talk about that, what is the intention and what is the impact? Well,
Yeah.
both of those things are important when it comes to leadership.
Mm-hmm. So how does a positive intelligence can help people more move from a survival mode, that survival mode, to clarity and
Yeah.
choice, a better choice?
So the positive intelligence gives people a practical way to recognize when they're in survival mode, when they're in reaction mode, and it helps leaders to recognize, wait, is this my saboteur voice? Yeah. Okay, then I'm going to then do a breath or ground myself for a moment and bring my mind back to the present and then choose something different. It gives them that opportunity to move from the survival region of the brain into the creative region, and choose a more empathetic, curious, um, exploratory, um, a different path to get to the result that they want to get to. So there's a better way, basically.
Yeah.
And there's a book called by Martha Beck called Beyond Anxiety. And in the book,
Right.
she talks about creativity being the antidote to anxiety. And being so that so and this is this sort of the same thing. It's that how can I be curious? How can I flow like how can I get out of this like anxious, gotta do it, this negative pattern is
Yeah.
by being creative. And being creative is anything that puts you in a different part of your brain where you can be calmer, clearer, more resourceful. Maybe try humming a tune. Maybe
Yeah.
try moving your body a little if you feel stuck. Maybe go for a walk around the block, get the blood flowing.
Exactly.
It helps you when you get really upset to shift into the sage part of the brain, and that will always give you a better outcome.
Yeah, definitely. So, why is body language often more powerful than words? In this case, in leadership communication, for example.
It's for the reasons we've talked about, because we are communicating so much non-verbally that words are just a small portion of it. And
Mm.
so much research shows that first impressions are made in a split second before a person even starts speaking. So body language, also things like it's important to show your hands. Our hands are our trust indicators. When we were cavemen, if we didn't see another caveman was coming at us and their hands were behind their back, we didn't know if they had a spear or a stone or something that they were going to use against us. And so we had alert was in our brain, right? But once we can show our hands, the alert comes down in our brain and we say, this is a friend, not a foe. This is somebody that we can trust. That's why they call the hands the trust indicator. So when when raise your hand, if there's a lot of phrases that we say about show your hands or hands up or
Yeah.
give me your hand. There's a lot about hands that is very powerful. And so even if you're on a Zoom call, I tell people that it's valuable to be able to have enough of your body in that you can actually show your hand gestures once in a while. It's also communicating to us a certain level of I can trust that person.
Mhm. So
Hands.
how can they use this body language, the leaders in this case, for example, in order to constantly sending those signals, positive signals towards others, no matter who those persons might be?
It's having open posture. So
Okay, okay.
looking at the person,
Mm-hmm.
maybe smiling,
Mm-hmm.
nodding to show that you're listening.
Exactly.
Um, all of those things, um, being mindful of how close you're standing, maybe leaning in when you want to make a point or when you want to show that you're listening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, doing a slight head tilt shows what does this communicate to you?
That you're thinking.
So it's communicating something without me even saying it that I'm thoughtful, that I'm thinking.
Exactly.
So we are constantly doing these things that we don't even realize. So I like to when I meet with someone, I like to know that they are listening to me. They're either
Same
nodding or
here.
this
Exactly.
right. They
Yeah.
smile. They
Exactly.
they maybe they shake my hand when we first meet. They listen and
Exactly.
show interest. So all of those things they're little, but they convey a lot.
Yeah, totally. And I totally agree with you, Judy. And one small thing that I will add, me personally, is that listening and hearing, they are two different things. So listening, it can become also a skill and it's a must have if you would like also to include the emotional intelligence into your life and work on that, etc. These two things are completely different. Mistakes
It's-
do leader commonly make when they ignore these non-verbal cues, for example, Judy?
So I think it's important for a leader to do a quick check-in and say,
Okay.
what is my face communicating? What is my body communicating? Is it the message? Am I breathing? Oftentimes we're holding our breath, right?
True, yeah. We
What
forget to
emotion?
breathe.
Right. So doing those small things, have you heard of RBF? Resting,
No, no,
maybe it's an American term. Resting bitch face.
no, I never heard it.
So it's a phrase RBF, and it's some people when their face is resting, they look unhappy. So like and they call it RBF. If you know that you have that and you've been given that feedback, it's important, right? That you
To
be
work
aware
on
of
that.
that. I've been told before that if I'm tired, people say, you look really tired. So my body shows when are you upset? Is something wrong? People have said that to me because I show my emotions in my body. Like I might
Yeah,
be like
same
this
here.
and then I might be like this. And so people
Mhm.
said, well, did something just happen? Your energy, like
Mhm.
you seem different.
Yeah, mostly
It's
in my case, my face expressions, when people actually understood something without me even saying nothing, like zero words. Like it's completely insane how this nonverbal, communication take place. It's better when you include first, like I would say, this nonverbal cues, so you can also understand from, as you mentioned earlier, of course, understand so much more about the other person from the other side rather than just talking, because words, guys, doesn't really mean anything as word. They are just words. We give the meaning to those words. No matter what those words might be, we give meaning to words. But we have to use them because we have to communicate, right?
Yeah,
So in order for us to truly communicate with one another, with each other, we have to use the words. And in many cases, also this nonverbal cues that actually can say a lot without even saying a
absolutely.
word, like in that sense.
So another thing is when I've seen a leader walk into a room and their employees are sort of quiet, and
Mm.
the leader just might say, so there might be something going on. And
Uh-huh.
unless the leader is able to create a sense of safety with their body language and their words, they might be missing out on a lot of information that their employees are afraid or don't feel comfortable to share. So
Yeah.
the leader can't just say, "I want you to tell me what's on your mind." I've seen that before. Why is nobody asking any questions? I had a leader say that. I saw her in a meeting, and why is nobody asking questions? I want people to speak up more. Well, people are afraid.
Duh.
And they told me separately that she's a nice person, but they're afraid of her because she can get upset really quickly. And so they don't want her to get upset, so they'd rather just not say anything.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's this, it's almost like a dance. It's
Yeah.
and
True.
in right? And so
Yeah.
if a leader really wants to hear, they need to come in
I agree.
and truly convey curiosity,
Yeah.
maybe slow down, maybe reassure them. I, you know, I I think it's important for us to all like just signal, smile authentically, be open in posture, be curious,
Ooh.
show vulnerability, say something that vulnerable. I have made mistakes in the past. Here's an example. We all make mistakes. This isn't going to be so showing vulnerability can be very powerful for a leader to share something.
Totally. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot's being communicated without even the
Yeah.
words.
How can actually people, for those who might be interested to kind of get into this body language section part of it, how can they start?
So
Well,
one way is just greater self-awareness, and that is maybe be taking a few breaths
mm,
every hour or two or three. Notice whether you're breathing. When you sit down in a meeting, notice the feeling of your feet on the ground and your seat on the chair, and take a few breaths. That is, and when people will say, don't send an email when you're upset, when you're mad.
true, 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 true.
So make sure that you're like try to self-regulate, and it might be one way for you and another way for me.
Exactly.
We all have the different way to do it. And so if you're curious, there's a lot of different resources available. There's a book called
True.
Positive Intelligence. This is an interesting one. It's called What Every Body is Saying.
Okay.
He's a former
Uh-huh.
FBI agent who's written a few books about body language. And Vanessa Van Edwards is who I studied body language from. She's written a few books. This is one of them.
Mm-hmm. Thank
Vanessa,
you.
um, there's a lot. There's different apps. I have a free app on my phone called the Insight Timer, and you can have free audio
There are also here in Denmark a lot of apps free apps that they are available for people who might be interested. I personally like the smell of the book, physical book. Still, I'm the old-fashioned girl from that point of view, honestly.
Well, and right now, the Olympics are going on.
Yeah.
And one thing about athletes is that many of them work with a sports psychologist. And a lot of what they do is learning how to self-regulate their emotions, doing visualizations because the
A
brain
lot with the
visualization, the mind doesn't know the difference between an imagination and in something
Exactly.
actually.
Exactly.
So we don't have to be a professional athlete to practice these things, these mindfulness, these visualizations, these reflections. And we can hone our skills and they become our superpowers, truly.
Exactly. One last thing, which is more a reflection, Judy. I call it a note to your past self. If you could write a short note to your younger self, what would you remind her about leadership, presence, and listening to what's unspoken?
I think one thing is that we are all leaders. We are the leader of ourselves and of our
Yes,
lives.
exactly.
And you don't have to have a title of a leader to be to be one, right? And to not take things so seriously and have fun along the way.
Judy, if someone wants to reach out to you, how they can do that? On LinkedIn, you also have a
LinkedIn is
website, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. I would love to. I take people through an 8-week positive intelligence program to create new patterns to be more mentally fit. And then I just have a coaching practice as well. So I'd love to work with people.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for your kindness and willingness to be here today with us, with me as well. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
As we close today's conversation with Judy, I invite you to reflect on one simple question. How am I really showing up, not just in words, but in presence as a person? Leadership is not only about strategy or skill, it's about awareness, it's about the nervous system, it's about the silent signals we send before we ever speak. If this episode resonated with you, take a moment to observe your posture, your breath, your energy, because that is where identity lives and where real rewiring begins. If you want to reach out to Judy, you can find her on LinkedIn, Judy Sandweiss. If you find value in this conversation, make sure to subscribe, share it with someone who needs it. If you need more information, you can simply scan this QR code. Thank you for listening to Rewire to Rise. Until next time, stay sharp.